everyone, welcome to this week's new video. I hope you are having a good time. I would say grab a snack, get something to drink, really sit for it because we're going to be discussing a really cozy book this week, I think. I'm sorry if the camera's kind of like falling. I don't know what's going on with my tripod, but it's been like not working how I want it to, so bear with me, okay? Well, bear with me. Foreshadowing is what we call that. I'm foreshadowing. I would show you the book, but I unfortunately don't have it with me right now. I'm in like the process of moving, so it's somewhere in a box. I tried to find it, I failed, so I'll just show you a picture. This is the book. It's The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. And I had a good time reading this. I want to preface the video by that. I had fun. So I decided to read this book because a book club I recently joined was reading this book. I was really excited to read this book because it's heavily influenced by Russian and Slavic folktales. And if you know anything about me and my reading habits, you'll know that I love like fairy tales, folklore, mythology. I'm obsessed with that. It's my favorite genres or my favorite things to take inspiration from. So I was really excited to start reading this. I'll do like a little plot summary, I think, because the plot is a bit confusing, and that's also one of my like minus points for this book, but I'll try to summarize it a little bit. This book is set in like medieval times in Russia. It's mostly about this main character whose name is Vasilisa, I should say. Vasilisa is her name. Her nickname is also Vasya, so that's how she's usually called. Okay, I need to explain myself now. There are multiple times throughout this video why I call the main character Vasilija and not Vasilisa, as I just did. So yeah, I'm sorry that's happening. I tried to get the name right and I just didn't. So if you just like kind of forget that happened, that'd be great. Thank you. And in the first like third of the book, she's still like a child. The book opens before she is born. It starts with her mother telling her father like, hey, I'm pregnant again probably, and everyone's kind of scared that she's not gonna make it before Vasilija is born, and that's true. Her mother unfortunately dies like right after she's born. So when Vasya is born, she's already like different. Her mother already knew like, okay, this child that I'm bearing right now, she's gonna have the same powers as I have. These powers are like not really like magic powers, but for Vasilija, what it really means is that she can see pagan creatures. One of these pagan creatures, for example, is the domovoi, which are these little creatures that live in the heart of the home. So they tend the oven and they keep it warm and all that, and Vasilija can see them while others cannot. So the first part of the book is when she's younger, and it more so follows like her family. She has multiple brothers and a sister as well. And at a certain moment, her father travels to Moscow. Her father, Pyotr, comes back with a new wife, who is a very young girl. Her name's Anna. And Anna also can see these pagan creatures, but she doesn't respect them or is intrigued by them. She fears them a lot. She thinks they're like devils, so she hates them. Or is at least terrified. But Vasilija is not. She sees these creatures, she knows these are just like things she grew up with. She's not scared of them. So that's the big difference between those two. After that first part, when you actually get to meet Vasilija as a teenager, I feel like the book becomes more vibe-based than plot-based, if that makes sense. Really what happens is that there's a priest that comes to the village, the area they're living in, and he's really preaching Christianity to everyone. Now the really integral plot part, what this book is actually about. So you've got Morozko, oh, this is how you spell his name, Morozko. And he's like Father Winter in Russian and Slavic folklore, and he is like the good guy, and his brother Medved is the bad guy. And Medved is also the bear referenced to in the title. And what's really happening is that the bear wants to break free out of his chains to rule the world, to take over, to make chaos. And because he wants to do this, he's trying to convert people to Christianity. He gets in the mind of the priest, Constantine, and really is like, I am the voice of God, you should listen to me. Because if people are Christian, they are not worshipping the pagan creatures anymore, and the pagan creatures are protecting the village from Medved. So those are the big things. And then Vasilia is still connected to all these pagan creatures and she cares for them, while the rest of the village is kind of letting that slide. They're not really that interested in that anymore. They're really more interested in Christianity, especially because the priest is like a really good priest. He's also apparently very attractive. So everyone in the village is like, yeah, let's do this Christianity thing. And they're also mostly scared. That's the biggest like motivator for a lot of these people. So that's kind of like the plot part of it. In the end, Vasilia, she tries to runs away to find Morosco. She's kind of banished by her stepmother, Anna, who is like scared of the creatures. She meets Morosco, the Father Winter, and she like stays at his place. There's like weird, questionable romantic undertones there. And I wasn't really sure how to feel about it, but it happened. They're not like explicitly romantic, but there's something there. There's like a tension. What happens is that Medved does break free because Anna, stepmother, she dies. And then to actually chain Medved again, Piotr, Vasilisa's father, he comes into the fight and like sacrifices himself. That's kind of the plot. I hope that made sense. It's a little bit difficult to explain because reading it I was also a little bit confused about what was going on sometimes, because sometimes some of the characters meet Morosco or Medved, and I wasn't sure which one was which. Some of the times I also wasn't sure like which one was the good guy and which one wasn't. The language of the book is very poetical. It's not straightforward prose like this. It is very vivid imagery, very nature-like. So if you're really into those kinds of books, as I am, I really liked it. Go for it. If you don't like that, don't read it. Another thing I kind of struggled with is the fact that a lot of the characters' names are abbreviated and they have like nicknames, which is very common in Russian culture. There's this guy who's called Kolya, and then someone's like, oh, Nikolai. I'm like, who is Nikolai? But it's the same guy. So that kind of is confusing sometimes. You really have to get into it at first. It took me a while to like get the link through every character, like, okay, this one is this and this one. So it took me some time. So I think one of the biggest themes really here is like religion, like paganism versus Christianity. But what I like is that it's not really like a versus, because in the beginning of the book, most of the people living in the village are Christian, but they're still also worshipping pagan creatures and gods and spirits. And I really like that they can coexist. I mostly enjoyed the amount of folklore that was intertwined. When I was discussing this book with the book club that I joined, there were also some people who like grew up with this kind of folklore. So it was really interesting to see their perspective of it, and they really enjoyed it as well. They thought most of the depictions were accurate to what they grew up learning about. Because the author, Catherine Arden, isn't from Russia or a Slavic country, she's from the US. So that was thoroughly enjoyable to know that they also quite liked it. Other things I wrote down, the Russian stove. I have to show a picture here of a Russian stove. Because at multiple points throughout the book they mentioned that they're gonna sleep on top of the stove, and I was kind of confused about what that meant. But this is what they mean. It's like this big oven that keeps the house warm. You can bake bread and you can also sleep on top of it so it stays warm. You stay warm. I'm kind of jealous, it seems really cozy. If I were to conclude how I felt about this book is that I did enjoy reading it overall. There were some points that I thought weren't really necessary, some plot points, like the fight at the end when Anna and Piotr die. The entire fight felt kind of rushed and unnecessary because it all happens quite quickly. The other problem I had is that the pacing isn't very consistent. Like the first part when Vasilisa is a child, a lot happens, because it's also like split throughout different time periods, but like when she's 6 and then she's 9. So those are kind of divided and a lot of things happen. And then when she's a teenager, kind of nothing really happens. Things are happening, but there's not like plot points really happening. So the pacing was kind of off at certain points for me. Apart from that, I did really enjoy it. It's actually the first book in a trilogy, and I do think I'm gonna read the other 2 books as well. the book kind of ends in a way you can see like, okay, this is a finished story, but it's kind of open-ended. I think I will rate this book enjoyable out of wonderful. I think that works. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope you also pick up this book because I really enjoyed reading it, and I think it would be fun to, you know, see what your thoughts were on it in the comments. Like the video, don't forget to subscribe. I'll be making more videos hopefully soon. I've been kind of busy, as you might understand, but hopefully I'll get to it again. So yeah, that was it. I hope you enjoyed the video.